Good afternoon. My name's Rob Pollard. I'm just going to show off some of the advanced line of sight features in Ancient Armies. Um, I'm obviously still writing the software. There might be some bugs that are apparent as I demonstrate it, but don't worry about those. They will be fixed in due course. Now, Ancient Armies supports three line of sight modes. It supports none at all. That's where you can see everything. Both the enemy and your own side, regardless of where they are. It also supports side-based line of sight, where you can only see your own units, regardless where they are, and everything that any of those units can see. And then finally, you have the most realistic line of sight mode, which I'm going to show you right now, which is leader-based line of sight. And in that mode, you can only see what your leader, can see. Now, in this case, leaders in Ancient Armies are represented by this leader flag. And right now I'm embedded in an infantry unit called the Guard. Ancient Armies allows you to either have your leaders stand alone or have them embedded in other units. And the reason for that is in real life, or historically, some commanders chose to fight embedded. A classic example of that being Alexander the Great. He always used to fight with his companion cavalry unit. But also some commanders used to effectively keep their staff team separate. A classic example being Hannibal. He wouldn't fight with the unit, but he would stay separate and command the battle that way. Ancient Armies lets you do both. Now right now I'm embedded in this infantry unit. So let's zoom out and take a look at the map we're on. So here I am, I'm on this hill, and right now I can only see one other unit, and that's that enemy cavalry unit on the hilltop there. Now, Ancient Armies allows you to view the maps either sort of semi 3D-ish like that, or you can sort of flatten them. It's whatever your preferences are. We'll leave that in 3D mode for the moment. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to maneuver my commander around and see how that affects line of sight. So let's move him across the ridge line of this hill first. So let's wheel him about and send him forwards. Right. Now, I should probably mention each one of these squares that they represent about 1 kilometre. So to move that kind of distance with a tightly packed infantry unit, it's going to take a bit of time. And rather than wait for the infantry unit to move that far, I'm going to increase time compression to ×10. So everything's going to happen at 10 times the speed. For those that are new to Ancient Armies, the turns, they take 30 seconds, so you'll see the action move, then stop, move and stop as I kick off a turn. So let's kick off our first 30-second turn. And remember, this is all happening at ×10 speed. So he's rotating round. I'm not seeing anything extra just yet. And now we're proceeding towards the ridge line. Now as I start to cross the ridge line, I start to get a view of one of my units and one of the enemy units. As I proceed further over the ridge line, I start to get views of some other units as well. In fact, I think we've gone far enough now, just remove that order. So, you can see these two enemy units and this unit and the cavalry unit. Now the thing to bear in mind is Ancient Armies does simulate the fact that units can block line of sight. In other words, you can't see through a unit, not unless you're higher up than that unit. In this case, I am higher up than this infantry unit, so I can see over it to these units over here. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to maneuver my commander's unit so he ends up around here to see how that affects his line of sight with regard to these two and our cavalry unit here. So let's maneuver him round. So let's wheel into there, moving forward, and then rotating round. And then we'll move him down the hill. Right, let's zoom in a bit more, and let's hit play and see what happens. So he starts his rotation. As you see, he's taking a little bit of cohesion damage as he's moving. In Ancient Armies, your units aren't robots. Fatigue and cohesion do affect them, and that varies dependent on innumerable factors. You have to see the videos I've got covering fatigue and cohesion modelling to see what goes on, but it's quite a lot. So far the picture hasn't changed much. We've got this unit that's appearing and disappearing on occasion because of the curvature of this hill. Now the fact he's appearing and disappearing that quickly, there might be a bug there, but we'll see. Now before I take my unit off the hill, I want you to take a special note of these two enemy units here and my cavalry unit over here and see what happens when I eventually reach ground level. See, right, we've now hit ground level and look, bam, they've gone. So why have these units disappeared? Well, we know why these two disappeared, because my unit here is blocking the way. I physically can't see over my own infantry unit. Now Ancient Armies is, I think, fairly unique in that respect. I don't know of many other games that do simulate the fact that units can block a line of sight as well. Our cavalry unit, why did he disappear? There didn't appear to be anything in the way. The reason for that, Ancient Armies maps, they simulate terrain clutter. And by terrain clutter, I mean micro terrain features, or micro undulations, micro vegetation, all these features that are perhaps too small to show on a map, but are still large enough to affect visibility through the map. And you can configure that any way you want. Now for this particular map here, I think I've set the terrain clutter distance to be around 1 kilometre, so let's have a look with our loss tool. Yeah, so green is what I can see, red I can't see, so I can see all the way up to right here, and then terrain clutter starts to take over. And you see that when you're out in the countryside, you can never see for miles and miles and miles, not unless you climb a hill. And Ancient Armies kind of simulates that, in that if I were to climb a hill, the terrain clutter becomes irrelevant and I can see a lot further. For example, if I was to draw a line of sight here, I might get affected by... See, I've got a good line of sight all the way to there. And that's simply because being on a hill takes you out of the clutter. That's why in Ancient Armies it's quite hills take on much greater importance, because not only are they good defensive places, but by placing your units, or at least your staff, on a hill, you can see a lot further. And it's not a lot further in terms of, I guess I'm on a hill so I can see over these other hills because it might be taller. It's a lot further because it takes you out of that micro terrain at ground level. And that's why in battles of antiquity so many staff units and other units used to seek out hills, because they give you a much better tactical view of the surrounding battlefield. So what we'll do first of all is I'm going to basically move this unit out of the way, and what should happen is these two red units should show up in theory. So let's have a look. Let's wheel him round and let's send him packing. We'll hit play. He's starting to recover now. And now as he wheels round, the enemy units become visible because this unit is no longer fully blocking our line of sight. But note, I can't see the other infantry unit, the other red one that was behind it, and the reason why is because this red unit is actually blocking line of sight. Now, Ancient Armies is so advanced in that respect, it even takes your eye height into account. So obviously I'm in an infantry unit, so I'm kind of looking at the battlefield from the perspective of a standard person. And I can show you that by using the line of sight tool. And as you can see, line of sight's fine up here, but then it's blocked by this unit because it's about the same height as me and I can't see past it. And that's why I can't see the unit behind it. I could see something that's on the hill because it's higher up, but in this area here it's a bit of a dead zone. However, this tool allows me to configure the eye height, so it defaults to being the eye height of an infantryman, but if I right click on it, I can actually set it for one of the other units of the game. So let's set it as a cavalry unit. Let's see how that affects the line of sight. Let's see how, as a cavalry unit, because I'm higher up, I can actually see over that unit, and had my leader being embedded in a cavalry unit, I would have been able to see both enemy units there. And that's why in ancient armies, cavalry commanders tend to have much better views of the battlefield than commanders are on foot. And this works with terrain as well. For example, I've got a 2 meter wall here. Now, can a normal infantryman see over a 2 meter wall? No, it blocks it. What about a 1 meter hedge? Can I see over that? Let's activate that. No, in this case, that might be because of the contouring. In this particular case, I can. That's because that hedge is only 1 meter high. What happens if we go back to our 2 meter wall, as we know it's blocked? What happens if we suddenly mount up? So let's set ourselves up as cavalry and run the tool. You can see we can now see over it. So being mounted does provide lots of advantages, and again, I think, I could be wrong, I think Ancient Armies is the only game that actually simulates eye level, and that's why it's good to be on horseback. So what I'll do now, I'll move this enemy cavalry unit so he's behind the 2 red infantry units, and in theory, because of his extra height, my infantry unit should still be able to see the cavalry unit even though he's behind these infantry units. So let's see if that works. So let's wheel him about. Let's charge him for extra speed. And then we'll rotate him round. And then we'll take him off the hill. Right, so let's run things up. Now, you have to remember we're running at ×10 speed, so things are going to appear a little bit faster than usual. So here we go, he's running down the hill. And now he's gone, and the reason why he's gone, you have to bear in mind, we are here, we're located here, and this hill here is in the way. So we're going to have to hit the play button continuously until eventually that enemy cavalry unit clears the crest line of this hill, in which case we should get a good view of him. So let's wait for him to clear the crest line, which hopefully he should do at some point. There we go, so he's just cleared the crest line, about to make his final turn, and now he's heading down the hill. And there you go. He's now on ground level, and although he's on ground level, and although there are 2 infantry units in the way, because cavalry are taller, I can actually see that cavalry unit through these infantry units. I'm kind of seeing above it. So that shows you how Ancient Armies even takes into account not only the fact that units can block line of sight, it also takes into the account their actual individual heights, not only their heights but your height. So if you're mounted as a cavalry unit, I would be able to see the other infantry unit there. So very advanced features. Now, what I want to do now, I want to move our commander over here so we can take a look at our cavalry unit. So let's rotate him round and send him in that general direction. About there will do. And let's hit play. So he's whizzing around. In fact, let's make it flat mode so you can see what flat mode looks like from the map. I personally prefer to play it in flat mode, though I suspect some of the other people would prefer 3D. And of course, I can show off the fact that you can zoom in as close as you want with Ancient Armies. You never get any breakup because of the way the system's designed. Now, let's send him on his way and see how this affects loss. Like I say, we're hoping to move close enough this way that this cavalry unit will come out of the terrain clutter. It's going to take a little bit of time. Now we've now picked up, or we've picked up this other infantry unit, and that's because we're kind of seeing them side on. We're picking up one of its edges on this side. And you'll find as I move down, this unit here will start impacting line of sight and also distance, clutter distance. Here we go. He's just come out of the clutter. Now, had I been on a hill, even say over here, I'd be able to see him straight away, simply because I'll be looking over the clutter of the terrain. And as I mentioned earlier, clutter is definable on a per map basis. So if your map represents a desert which genuinely is quite flat, then yeah, you can set the clutter distance to be many kilometers. So yeah, start to block line of sight. Note that this unit hasn't blocked line of sight to this cavalry unit because I'm effectively seeing over it. So let's wait till he's quite close to our friendly cavalry unit over here, and then we can show you how woods work. And I see he's taking quite a lot of cohesion damage. He has moved quite far. So what are we doing? In fact, the enemy cavalry unit has disappeared now, and that's because he's disappeared into the clutter of the terrain. But again, had I been on a hill, I would still be able to see him. So what are we doing? Let's zoom right in. Now this unit here, although he's on our side, he's slightly different colour because Ancient Armies allows you to assign allies to your army, and they have lots of features which I don't really want to get into right now. Alright, that's probably, I'm guessing, around close enough. So I'll just wheel him around so he's facing the unit. So let's wheel and run him round. In fact, I can actually start giving him his orders. So I'm going to send this cavalry unit into the woods and we'll see what happens. Right, so here we go. Again, remember this is at times 10 time compression, that's why things are really fast. A lot faster than they would be. So the cavalry unit is zipping off into the woods. And note we can see him even though he's in the woods. And that's because Ancient Armies simulates wood density, so you can actually see a certain way into the woods. But watch what happens as he proceeds further into the woods. He's gone. And that's because the trees are quite literally getting in the way, and you can prove that if I run the line of sight tool. You can see that I can see about 100 meters into these particular woods, and then it's blocked. Now in the map editor you can define how dense each wood is, so some you can have super dense so you can barely see into them at all, others you can have very open, in fact so open you might be able to always see through them. That's completely configurable as you add the woods. Now the other thing this game does, so it will be an option you can turn on and off, is it will put a ghost unit where you last ordered your units so that you know where you sent your units even when you can't see them. So it's an aid memoir as it were. Now in the real game I wouldn't be able to send him or give him any direct orders because for a start he might be too far away, but also I can't see him directly to give him those orders. I would have to quite literally send a messenger who would go through the woods, find the unit and give him his orders, and that kind of limits the kind of orders you can give. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to move my infantry unit into the woods in the hope of finding him again. So let's go for it. So let's move forward. Let's rotate us around. So let's go for a wheel. Let's move about there. So as we move into the woods, we should start to pick up our cavalry unit again. So here we go. We're moving in. As I hit the wood line, there we are, we're starting to slow down and we're starting to take cohesion damage. And see it speed up again, and that's I thought that was a bug at first, but it's actually the cohesion system working as designed. If you can imagine, before entering the woods he was a nice solid line, and then as he was going through the woods the formation starts breaking up, but the fact that the formation started to break up because of lack of cohesion, it means it can traverse the woods a lot easier because of the gaps in the formation. It's a bit of a paradox really, but you wouldn't want to fight like this because of the lack of cohesion, though irregular units don't suffer for this. That's why they're so much better in woods. So you want to keep tight formations like this out of the woods if possible. So we still can't see our cavalry unit yet. I'm sure he's in there. He should show up at some point. There we go. So our cavalry unit's now showing up. And that kind of demonstrates how woods work in Ancient Armies. So that's pretty much it for the leader base line of sight mode. Stay with me and I'll show you side base line of sight. Thank you. Right, welcome back. I'm now going to show you how side base line of sight works in Ancient Armies. Let's run that up. Again, we're going to go for the line of sight demo, which is one that we just saw. And I'm going to pick side base line of sight. We're playing as blue. So player, let that load up. There's our orders as blue. And let's see what we can see. So note, with side base line of sight, I can always see my own units, regardless of where they are, even if they're behind a crest line. But I can also see everything they can see. So although I'm still here as the commander, I can see this unit here, even though as a commander I wouldn't be able to in real life because this hill's in the way. And the reason why I can see him is one of my units, this unit here on the hill, can actually see him. He's on a tier 2 hill at it's 20 meters to the bottom left, and you can see right over this hill and see this unit here. So in theory, if I move him down the hill, we should lose sight of him. Let's zoom in a bit closer. Helps to actually click on the unit. So move forwards, moving down the hill. Let's put the time compression back up to 10 to speed things up a bit. Now this line of sight mode hasn't been tested as extensively as the other one, so we'll see what happens. Let's hit play. So he's whizzing down the hill, and as he goes down, note that irregular unit's disappeared. So although this unit isn't the commander, he is. This enemy unit's now disappeared because none of my units, regardless of where they are, can see him anymore. And that's one of the consequences of side base line of sight. And as mentioned earlier, the other consequence of side base line of sight is regardless of where I move my units, I can always see them. So if I move this cavalry unit deep into the woods, you'll note that unlike the previous line of sight mode, he'll always be visible to us. So I remember we're at times 10 acceleration. That's why things are moving so quick. So into the woods he goes, taking a lot of cohesion damage at the same time. But note, regardless of how deep he's gone into the woods, I can still see him, because in side base line of sight you can always see your own units. So in many respects it's a bit of a compromise in that side base line of sight gives you some line of sight challenges in that you can't see all the enemy units, you can only see the ones that your units can see, but at the same time it lets you see all your own units. So what happens if I send one of my units over this ridge line? Does that impact things at all? So let's move him forward. And again, remember, our commander is down here. That's right, so let's hit play and see what happens. Again, these are all 30-second turns, which might change later on during development. I might realise that 30 seconds is actually too short. I apologise for the noise, it's quite windy down here in Bristol. Let's up the time compression times 50. I'll really send him speeding on his way. I wouldn't recommend playing the game at times 50. It's actually designed to be played at times 1, so you get the feel and flow of a real battle. Let's tap that down times 10. Alright, are we going to see anything extra when he clears the ridge? Now again, as I've mentioned, this mode hasn't been tested as extensively as leader based, because that's the primary mode of this game. Although it will get tested once I'm done. Oh look! So I've spotted this unit here. Even though there's no way my commander can physically see him, because one of my units, this one, can see him, he's spotted. So what happens when I move him further down? Let's rotate him a bit. Let's see if we can spot anything else. Move forward. See if anything else becomes visible. Theoretically, if I move him far enough northwards, the unit that's here should start to pop up. I know there might be a bug there, but we'll see. Yeah, he's not showing up just yet. Let's move him further forward. There we go. It might be to do with the curvature of the hill, I don't know. I'll have to look into that. But again, there's no way my commander here could ever see that, but the fact that one of my units can see it means it's visible. So that covers side base line of sight. I was going to cut you to another video for no line of sight, but I might as well show you right now actually, because there's not much to see. So again, we'll run the game up again. This time I'll pick no line of sight whatsoever. Again, we're playing as blues. What can we see? And note, in this mode, you can see everything. I can see all my units, and I can see all the enemy units, even the ones that none of my units can see, like this one here. So obviously that's the least realistic mode. It's the mode that many other computer war games tend to have, although to be fair, many of them do have fairly good line of sight modes as well. But I think Ancient Armies is unique in that on its highest line of sight settings, it simulates a lot of things that other games simply don't. And the reason why I've invested this effort in the line of sight systems, as I say, I want to try and give the player the most realistic command and control experience. I can only do that if I limit the information to the player in the most realistic way. And hopefully that will get players to experience tactical situations that perhaps they wouldn't see in other games. Anyway, that's it for this video. Bear in mind, the game is still in development. It's early days. Things might yet change again. But I think in terms of line of sight, the core functionality is now all there. That's it. Have a good one. Bye.